What's going on, y'all? Forward Fabian back again with a video. I'm doing a reaction the first time you realize America really messed you up, man. This is actually a part 4, but this is my first time doing a reaction to this actual series. So like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me at X and Instagram at Fort Worth Fabian, man. Let's get it.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Okay, so unfortunately, I have more than one of these situations because America. But one that I know specifically that just happened to me recently, I was walking to my car. It was late at night. I was leaving the mall, and this guy was walking behind me, and I was just like, dun 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 dun. What does he want from me? And I got in my car, and when he walked past, I locked the doors. And I was just like, wait a minute. You're not in North Carolina anymore. And it's so weird because I've been so comfortable here. I've went inside of the store and left my car running because it's super hot in Abu Dhabi. And I'm like, let's leave the air going. But yeah, America has really made me scared to strangers. Which, I mean, it probably should because the world is crazy. But
okay, she should have started off with the fact she was in Abu Dhabi. I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, oh, this is North Carolina. So she's a girl who lived in North Carolina, moved overseas, lives in Abu Dhabi now, and every little thing scares her while she's in this other country due to, I guess, the trauma she's experienced in America.
Yeah, not in the UAE. It's just not that way.
When I was studying abroad in Japan, I got super sick one month, and my host family kept telling me to go to the doctor, and I kept refusing. And when they asked why, I said because I was scared they're going to send me to the hospital and leave me with this huge bill. And then they quickly had to explain to me that that's not how it works, and if I actually needed to go to the hospital, I would not leave with a $6,000 bill just for IV fluids and ibuprofen.
So, as an American living in New Zealand for the last 2 years, I have definitely had a moment of clarity where I realized how the American healthcare system is. So I was watching this cooking show with my boyfriend, and the girl who wanted to win, she wanted to win because she had all these medical bills she needed to pay because she was in a hit and run. So she was hit, obviously, and her legs got super up. But I was like, wait, why is she paying $80,000 in medical bills because she got hit? That makes no sense. So, safe to say, I don't think I'll be moving back to the States anytime soon, especially since I broke my wrist here and it was completely free.
That's what I'm saying.
How does that work, bro? America?
I used to, my time spent in England, man, and understand their healthcare system, it just made me think well, hey, we got stuff backwards in the States. You know what I mean? To her explanation there, how do you have to pay upwards of $80K in hospital bills and debt for you being struck? There should be some type of, especially if there's people to attest, witnesses, video footage, some type of clause that, pertaining to how you're injured that would affect, treatment and, billing for that treatment, right? Self-infliction, that's probably, hey, that's your fault, bro. But if you get hit by a random car, let's get some leniency, man. You come off an injury, a near fatal injury, and then you're close to 100K in debt on top of that, man. That's a double whammy.
Get your shit together.
What, hey?
So a few weeks after I moved to South Korea, I got pretty sick. I got a pretty gnarly sinus infection. So my boss insisted on taking me to the doctor, even though I was like, no, it's fine. I don't need to go. I'll get better. And she took me to the doctor, and I have health insurance here in Korea. I have the national health insurance plan. And at the end of my appointment, my boss said to me, oh, it's 5,000. So I heard her say 5,000. 5,000 won is about $5 US. But in my head, there was no way it could have only been 5,000. So I pulled a 50,000 won note out of my wallet and I handed it to her. She tried to give it to the receptionist, and he was like, does she have anything smaller? This is a big bill. And she was like, do you have anything smaller? And I was like, but it's 50. She was like, no, it's $5,000, $5. And I was like, how can a doctor's appointment only be $5?
When my grandfather was dying, we went to Scotland to go and see, him for one last time. And at one point, my grandfather had a prescription that needed picking up. So I pop out of the car, run into the pharmacy, and I've got my purse on me. I don't have very much money with me. I just didn't. And I went in and I'm just like, okay, I'm here to pick up for my grandfather. This is his name. And I've got my passport out, ready to hand it to them, like to prove that I'm who I say I am. And they're like, oh yeah. How's John doing? Here you go. Here's his stuff. Hey, let him know that if he ever needs help with this, you can just call us. We'll send it on down to him. I said, thank you. And then I stood there and they're like, why are you still here? I was like, but I need to pay. And they're like, no, you don't. He's old. Everything's free. I never felt more uncomfortable leaving a building than I did in that day.
Dang.
It was awful.
I'm a U.S. citizen currently living in Costa Rica.
They're saying you stupid Americans. Or, well, she wasn't even American, I guess. But generally speaking, if you were in another place, they'd be like, man, this dumb American.
We have to be careful about the use of the word American since the Americas are continents. Anyway, I have so many examples of how the U.S. me up, specifically Florida. We got to Costa Rica the second weekend in November, obviously still deep in the throes in the US with COVID. And coming from Florida where there's so many anti-maskers and COVID deniers, it was surreal to go to these establishments here where everyone's following the Ministry of Health's rules. There's hand washing stations outside of every establishment. There are people taking your temperature to go into grocery stores and certain restaurants. People are giving you distance. Everyone is compliant with masks. And I found myself so defensively postured, ready to argue because I had gotten into so many arguments in Florida with anti-maskers and COVID deniers. It's amazing when people don't politicize a virus.
So I don't currently live abroad, but I grew up abroad.
That's crazy, man. When you really think about it, like, I mean, not everybody has the opportunity to go to, foreign countries and things of that sort, but there's a certain stigma that comes with Americans and them being like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Just based off what they see on TV. And we think like that's not us. But in actuality, very extreme dramatic situations will make you look like the natural general American, man. Just like the lady Pryor had said, she never felt so embarrassed to be American and that she thought Florida completely messed her up. I can only imagine what it was like traveling after things kind of cleared up for overseas travel during the COVID era. I can only imagine traveling during that time period, because you have no idea, like she was attesting to the extremes other countries were taking in terms of following healthcare protocol. So if you can only imagine, that'd be nuts.
So many.
That'd be wild, bro.
First one is Common Core math. This one didn't mess me up as much when I was living abroad as much as it did when I moved back. Because believe it or not, when I was growing up, I was taught to understand the inner workings of the math. Like, I understood the math. I understood what was happening in the equations. I knew what they meant. But when I came back, the people that were getting A's on tests, like doing the best in math, had no understanding of what was actually happening in the math. I remember having like right on right answers, and I would be getting marked down because I wasn't using the Common Core math. And then when I tried to use the Common Core math, I didn't know how to do it because it was just steps, and I didn't understand what was going on in the math, and I wouldn't do well. Like, oh my god.
So I live in Paris.
I kind of see where she's coming from, man.
By a taxi, relatively hard. I fell down on the street.
Things are taught differently in different educational systems, right? When she mentioned the steps, well, I guess in any process to kind of evaluate or come to a solution to a problem, you have to go through steps. But teaching through step form versus teaching through understanding, or you get like, the holistic meaning, from start to finish, that's a bit different. I don't even know if that makes sense, but like you could teach somebody steps, but to teach somebody the theory behind something, I think is it's a larger form of understanding, because I know the why behind the why versus like you told me to do it this way, so that's why it is,
All these people came and they picked me up. They brought me over to a bench. Someone from a restaurant brought me a glass of water. Another woman gave me a handful of coins, and I was like, I don't need your money. It's okay. And she was like, sweetheart, this is your money. It fell out of your pockets when you got hit by the taxi. And I was like, Sonic the Hedgehog vibes. Great. The man who hits me goes to call the ambulance, and I said, stop.
got them rings
Do
knocked
not
out
call
of
the
it.
ambulance. That will cost me $3,000 to $5,000 because that's what an ambulance costs in America. And he was like, what are you talking about? An ambulance is €7. I was like, oh my God. Remind me to twist my ankle on my way home from the club, and they'll give me an IV so I won't be hungover the next day? Catch me at the hospital. This is lit.
I'm answering
America,
this, but
joke.
kind of the opposite. I'm an American who was born abroad and then moved to America. We moved when I was 8, and I went from a really nice school to an American public school. And on the very first day, I came in
She got beat up.
with a snowsuit in one hand and a pair of slippers in my other hand. I was like, where do I put this down? They looked at me like, no, you don't need a snowsuit for class. What? We lived in Sweden, so if you were going to go to recess, there was a fair chance that you might need a snowsuit sometime. So I was embarrassed, my mom took it back, and then I heard a ding 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 above the speakers. When I tell you I was not prepared for 20 to 30 8-year-olds to stand up in unison, place their hands over their heart, and start chanting together, I don't think I can explain how weird that was. And then, nobody taught me the Pledge of Allegiance. From then on out, they just assumed I knew it. And that's just American arrogance for you.
Dang. And, I mean, I'm curious where she moved. You would kind of know based off the weather conditions whether a snow coat was even necessary. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you in Florida and then you're showing up to school in a snow coat thinking that you need a snow coat for recess, you're a dummy. Shame on your parents for not being like, we're in a warm weather climate. You don't need a jacket. You know what I'm saying? So I need more context to that story because sounds like your parents finessed you. You know what I'm saying? But if you're in like Wisconsin or wherever it gets cold, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Up north, you know what I'm saying? Somewhere and it's cold naturally. Sure, that story kind of makes a little bit more sense, but you can't just randomly say I moved to America and I snowed up with a bubble suit and they were like, what? Because, like, sometimes you just got to use common sense, man. Come on, man. And now that she mentions the Pledge of Allegiance, it's crazy how long it's been since I've been in school. Or, like, you know, elementary, middle school, high school, things of that sort. Because it's like I completely forgot doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I didn't even recall that was a thing. But now that I think about it, I think, yeah, it may even still be a thing to this day. I don't know. School is so different now. I have no concept of school at all. That's why when people are like, how's your summer going? I'm like, summer is normal, bro, because I'm not in school. Summer mattered when you were in school because you had a summer break. When you live in the real world, you don't have summer breaks. So summer is just a part of the year, man. Like, how's your summer? It's usually people that got kids that I ask that. How's the summer going with the kids? Because they're out of school. You're busy with the kids. Summer school, taking vacations, going swimming, whatever it is. Like, but I have no concept of school anymore. It's been so long. Now, dang, we used to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Imagine if you a foreigner, you just see everybody stand up in unison and just, that'd be some weird... That'd be some weird cultish type of stuff if you ain't really familiar or hip. But to us, of course, that's normal.
So I live in Stockholm, Sweden, but I'm from Nashville, and I used to have the best job ever in Nashville, but I was always paranoid about getting fired for no reason, because that happened to a lot of people at my company. People get fired and no one would say why. Like, they would just drop in the group chat and be like, this person's not with us anymore. We'd be like, okay. So when I was applying for jobs in Sweden, I would like tell the employer, I'd be like, oh, job security is really important to me because I don't want to just like show up one day and find out that I'm fired. They were like, what are you talking about? Like, that's illegal. I was like, huh? And long story short, it's like completely impossible to fire someone like in Sweden. The company.
That's what I'm trying to say initially. Isn't that illegal if you have no type of explanation as to why? You can't just fire somebody. You got to explain why. There has to be some type of reason.
Has to prove that you either killed somebody or that like employing you will make them bankrupt. It's like so much work to try and fire somebody, but you can quit whenever you want depending on your contract. But yeah, all my employers were like shocked to hear that I could get fired tomorrow and they didn't have to tell me why. Thanks, Sweden.
I chose to do this even though I'm a Canadian. We have free healthcare, but the reason I'm doing it is because everyone talks about healthcare with this stitch, and guess what? I'm in Greece. I'm in Europe. Okay, so 2015, I'm in Europe. I've got bilateral pneumonia, both lungs full. 2 months in, I'm seeing no signs it's getting better. I can't breathe. I can't even walk 10 steps. I'm out of breath. I'm like, can't do any. Finally, it's life or death. I mean, I gotta go to the hospital. I gotta bite the bullet. Whatever they're gonna charge me in Greece, I gotta pay it. So I show up at the hospital. They put me on this ventilator thing. They got my airways opened up. They did x-rays. I still got the x-rays. They did blood work. They did everything. They told me what I had. They gave me 3 different types of meds. And when I go to leave, you know how much they charge me? €5. It's about $6 American. What?
So about a year ago, I ended up going to the emergency room here in the US because I had really bad asthma and I felt like I couldn't breathe. And all they told me to do at the emergency room was to take some allergy pills. Some that I already had at home, and then they just sent me home. And it ended up being $2,000, including insurance.
Damn.
Back up to 2 years ago, I was in China, and I had to go to the emergency room for the exact same thing. And I was like, thank God I got the study abroad health insurance, because I'm going to the emergency room right now, and I'm really afraid how much it's going to be. Okay. Ended up going to the emergency room, and in the end, I paid $4 without the insurance. Didn't even need it.
Like how she zoomed in.
It was $4.
So, obviously, you know, the commonality is the healthcare system. Point blank, period. We're finessed. And it's not even just that, man. We're finessed in so many various forms and fashions, man. America in the 50s and the 60s, yeah, you know, that's when things were cheap. Really cheap, man. I can only imagine. You know, I forgot the, look, what would $1 million equate to in the 60s? Oh, never mind. So basically, $1 million back then equated to 8 million today. Inflation has averaged 2.78% for the past 30 years. What would a 60K equate to? So $1 you could buy, $1 had the equivalent purchasing power of approximately $10. That's kind of wild. The average cost of a car was $2,600, while today it's $30K. I mean, I guess that's naturally inflation over time, right? But dang. A simpler time. Let me know y'all's thoughts on this in the comment section below. I mean, people who are just Americans, period, have no experience of any, you know, lifestyle outside of America, have no clue, you know, zero clue. If you've been to other countries, you understand that it kind of makes you appreciate America a little bit more for what it is. But at the same time, it's very extreme. Like, I didn't go out to other countries feeling afraid like the girl in the first story. But, I mean, that's, who knows where she is in particular. I kind of felt like I was, like, on steroids. You know what I mean? Being American, you live a completely different lifestyle. And when you go to other places, like, it's kind of toned down a little bit. It's not all, like, to the T's. So, that's what I mean by being on steroids. It's just like you're just... Things that you experience out there won't really surprise you, like, in the sense of, like, because we see the extremes here. So I don't know, take that how you will. Let me know y'all's thoughts on this in the comment section below. Comment y'all's thoughts. Peace, love, prosperity. God bless. We'll see you on the next video. We out.